This report is about Biafran children who are dying of starvation. The first reaction to these pictures may well be, we've seen it all before. You have, but with one difference. Most of the starving children we showed in our reports from Biafra last year are now dead. This is a report about children who will die in the next few months unless the war is stopped, unless there's a massive and continuous flow of relief supplies into Biafra by air, land and sea. Relief agencies estimate that maybe 2 million Biafrans have died since the war started, the majority of them from starvation and diseases that feed on malnutrition. And the fear of relief workers now is that at least another million may die in the next few months. Alan Hart was in Biafra recently and sent us this report.
Relief workers, doctors and missionaries in Biafra are now faced with a most appalling dilemma. They may soon have to make a decision which they consider to be both inhuman and contrary to their Christian beliefs. The first basic principle of relief work is that the most aid is given to those most in need. But because of the shortage of food and medicines, all of those who are being kept alive on a day-to-day basis may have to be abandoned and left to die in order to give priority to those who are still reasonably fit and well, to give them the best chance of survival. By admitting only perhaps 1 in 10 of the most needy to their feeding centers and clinics, relief workers and doctors have anyway to make an agonizing choice about who should live and who should perish. Precious effort cannot be squandered on those without a good chance of surviving. Doctor, what chance does this baby have of surviving despite all these efforts that you're making?
Well, a very small chance because, you know, this patient is not a kwashiorkor, he's a maras. That's to say that he's 100 years old and he has no glands going well now. He has no pancreas, he has no liver. And usually we lose between 20 or 30 patients like this one in a week. They make hypoglycemia, they make heart disease very quickly, and from time to time they are dying without any explanation.
How long would you expect this particular one to survive?
A few days, probably he's dying on next week, probably. Yeah.
So, in fact, you're really wasting your time now on trying to make him survive.
Well, we have every day we have to make a choice and to choose our patients, and when we have to make this choice in the refugees camp, for instance, we have 200 children, and we have just 40 or 30 places, and we have to choose them. I don't know how we make this choice because they are all in the same case. They are all like that, you know. In a few refugees camps in the south.
Do you find it possible to shut out of your mind the children that you are having to leave to die?
No, probably not. No.
These are the children in Category 1. These are the children in most need of food and medical attention. They are being kept alive on a day-to-day basis. In the new order of priorities, these children and many thousands like them will be the first who will have to be abandoned and left to die.
Let us pray. Instructed by thy saving precepts and following thy divine institution, we presume to say, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
These are the children in Category 2. Many of them would have a good chance of surviving if they could be given regular food and medical attention over a period of several months. But this can no longer be guaranteed, and in the new order of priorities, many of these children may also have to be abandoned. And again, for every one of these children at present receiving food and medical attention in feeding centres and clinics, there are perhaps another 9 who are beyond the reach of relief supplies in the bush and the jungle. To feed only those fortunate enough to be given places in relief camps, that is the minority of those most in need, it's estimated that a daily minimum of 500 tons of food supplies is required. Relief organizations are getting into Biafra each night only 200 tons. Almost the whole of this deficit could be made up if Biafra and Nigeria were able to reach agreement on daylight relief flights by the Red Cross, or failing that, if the International Red Cross was willing to resume night flights. For the missionaries who run the relief camps, the dilemma is a terrible one.
If the situation gets worse in terms of food, we will have to abandon the worst group of children, those who are worse than the present group here. This is a second group, and it may be possible also that we will have to abandon these and try to reserve the food we have for those who are healthy.
These are the children in Category 3. The others will have to be abandoned to give these the best chance of survival. These are the children who will qualify for preventive feeding. The argument is that unless they are given top priority because they are now fit and reasonably healthy, they will be exposed to the same degree of starvation as the others. One of the people who's faced with the problem of deciding who eats and who doesn't is Dr. Anne Seymour. She's probably the most overworked doctor in Biafra.
Any fruits? Arab, orange. It's an orange.
Dr. Seymour, he looks pretty grim, that little fellow. Does he have much of a chance?
Well, he should be all right. He's not as bad as some of them. If I didn't think he had a chance, I wouldn't waste 5 shillings on him. We've had a lot worse than this one this morning. Go on, go and get your medicine, Anta. Get up there. Ibuafe. You've been seen, haven't you? You rascal. This one's been seen. Oh, I sent her to get her medicine. This is one of our numerous TB children who's been sick for about a year.
This is TB as a result of the effects of malnutrition and starvation.
Well, TB is a disease which is certainly aggravated by starvation and by overcrowding. And these are all people who have been refugees and have come back again. And while they've been away, they've been living with enormous communities crammed into school buildings like this. And therefore, if you get 2 or 3 TB cases in a village who moved into a school, it just spreads around like wildfire. I mean, in the sick bays, some of the sick bays, 50% of the children have got TB.
Dr. Seymour, there is at the moment a dilemma facing all relief workers and doctors in that you've got to give a certain order of priority because the food is becoming scarcer and scarcer. You're going to have to abandon, possibly to death, those most in need of food in order to be able to feed the...
This isn't a new dilemma. We've been up against this, well, to a great extent for a couple of years. I mean, in January, February and March '68, we were in exactly this case with regards to medicines and food. It wasn't so widespread there because the refugee problem wasn't so big. I mean, this is a recurring problem. It's not a new problem.
No, but there is now the prospect of it happening on a frighteningly big scale. Is this so?
Oh, yes. And I mean, there are plenty of places. For instance, Father has no reliefs in his store. We have no foods to give out today. Normally in this clinic, the bad malnutritions will get some beans or some cornmeal. But today, Father's store is empty. So we have nothing to give out to these people, except the medicines and a small amount of cash for those who are genuinely short of money to buy vegetables and fruits to add to their diet. For instance, there are 2 or 3 grandmothers who've got 5 orphan grandchildren living with them, and we've given most of them 10 shillings to buy vegetables to put in their soup, which will go absolutely nowhere. You can buy enough vegetable for 1 day's soup for 10 shillings.
But to come back to the main dilemma, your basic job is to save lives. You have reached the point now where you're having to switch off and abandon some people. How do you feel about this? This is a basic conflict with your job.
This is a conflict I've been trying to get advice on for a couple of years. I've asked most of the fathers, what do you do when you've got 4 patients and if you concentrate on one of them, you might save the life of that one. Now, you're justified in leaving the other 3, or shall you waste time and medicines giving a little bit to each? And nobody can give me a definite answer of what the theological position is on this.
But the practical
position... The practical position is you deal with the one who is at the front of the line.
But you have now accepted the fact that you have to condemn certain people to death because you cannot help them anymore.
Well, when it gets to the stage that the medicines that we have brought to Bush finish, then we have to stop the clinic. And this, of course, is the real reason for this disorder, because the patients are afraid that the medicine will finish. And if the medicine finishes before they are seen, it will be 3 weeks before we are here again. Therefore, they are pushing and shouting to get their children to the front of the line, with the result that nobody gets seen. But I can't tell you how to decide which patient you are going to treat. I mean, there are some of the very old people that, although you say, well, it would be better to treat the younger people, some of these old people, you can't just turn them away and give them nothing.
Very briefly, how despairing of the coming weeks and months are you?
Well, I've got past the stage of despairing. All you can do is get on with the bits that you've got. It's no good trying to work out what will happen if and when, because so many times people have said, we can't last out another fortnight, but always something turned up at the last minute.
In Biafra today, despite the increasing shortages of food, there are few instances of people stealing what little there is. A food thief can expect an instant beating to death, or to be killed by a nail being driven through his head. But such harsh penalties are no consolation to those who wander lawfully in search of food. The man who knows most about the missionaries' dilemma is their superior, Bishop Whelan.
My terrible fear is the continuation of the war. If we do not get peace, then we are in danger of far greater starvation. I would estimate that at the moment we have lost already, between war and famine, 2 million people, and we stand to lose between 3 months and 6 months another 2 million. That is a terrible tragedy, a tragedy which can only be averted by peace and an ample supply of food.
In spite of their sufferings, the Biafrans are still fighting, and their morale is still very high. They've been given a breathing space at the moment because the federal leader, General Gowon, is undecided about whether to launch a final offensive to try to end the war. The Biafrans' will to survive finds both its symbol and its inspiration in their leader, General Ojukwu. Ojukwu insists he's still ready to negotiate peace, but his public contempt for the federal leaders remains as strong as ever.
Fellow countrymen and women, we are assembled here to testify once again to the failure of Jacob Gowon's bloodlust and ambition. I am proud and happy to say that the enemy is today further away from Akokwa and Olo than he was when he set this latest of his routine deadlines for a final military victory. This struggle has lasted very much longer than anyone, including the enemy, expected. We are anxious to see an end to the suffering, deaths, gloom, and wanton destruction of property. We are anxious and eager for peace, not peace of death or of surrender. That has been our aim and policy all along the struggle. We have devoted as much energy and attention in pursuit of peace as we have done in pursuit of our survival. The failure so far has been because the enemy does not believe in peace through negotiations, but in peace through military victory, peace between the conqueror and the conquered, peace on his own terms. A ceasefire is necessary for really meaningful talks. We, however, know that a ceasefire is a complicated exercise which will take time to organize, and therefore feel that representatives of both sides can meet, as they have done in the past, to negotiate a ceasefire or any other matter agreeable to both sides. Previous experience has, however, shown that for fruitful results to be achieved, it is necessary for Gowon and I to meet. While accepting this, I, for one, can never travel out of Biafra while hostilities continue. This being so, one way of getting over the difficulty is for the friends of both sides to meet, iron out the difficulties, and arrange for Gowon and I to meet. Such a meeting will be to lay down in broad outlines what our representatives will subsequently negotiate in detail. Throughout this war, there has been the optimistic view held by our enemies that arms and a military victory would solve the Biafran problem. Periodically, when it seems that the militarist policy is about to fail, recourse is taken in starvation, which is intended, in Lord Hunt's own words to the House of Lords, to reduce the defenders to physical conditions which they can no longer endure. It is from these facts that the problems of relief derive their complexity. For our enemy and their collaborators, indeed for Biafra also, the problem of relief is inextricably interwoven with the politics of peace. An attempt to separate the two is at best an exercise in self-delusion and at worst a criminal complicity in the crime of genocide. For 28 months, the pendulum of this war has alternated between the slow kill, assisted by slow starve, and the quick kill, equally assisted by a quick starve. The Nigerian attitude has been made quite plain to the world and has received support in the British Parliament. Awolowo, Katsina, Inahoro, and Aida have all along made it clear to the world that they in Nigeria consider food a vital element in our military arsenal and that they would never willingly allow food to come to us, their enemies. For this reason, no relief can come to Biafra with the permission of Nigeria. In support of this, both Britain and the United States have marshaled their entire diplomatic influence to portray Biafra as callous and indifferent to the sufferings of our own people in order merely to justify in some way Nigeria's crime. You will be shocked to hear this, but acting in full awareness of my responsibility, both as the mouthpiece of the people and the custodian of the people's security, I offered to compromise our security within limits just short of crass irresponsibility. I offered to chance the isolation and destruction of our arms flight. I offered the neutralization of our air force so as to receive for our sovereign people some relief, to obtain for them temporary relief, and also to demonstrate again the genocidal intent of Lagos policy. All I asked for was a guarantee that this is not directly exploited by Nigeria. Britain and the United States are not satisfied. To them, it is not enough to neutralize. Biafra must be destroyed. Fellow countrymen and women, we must not be deceived. So long as Britain and Nigeria maintain their policy of using starvation as an instrument of war, so long will Biafra be denied relief. I call upon the innocents of this mad conflict on the other side, mothers, market women, children, and common people of all walks of life, to take heed. The day of reckoning is at hand. Today I stand before you proud to be a servant of such a heroic people. Today I stand before you to proclaim that our heroic youth in the various fronts have turned the tide of this war. They have smashed all enemy offensives directed at our destruction. In the air, they have destroyed systematically the sinews of Nigeria's military might. The Biafran Air Force, small as it is, has stopped the entire oil flow of Nigeria from the mainland wells. Our gallant boys are men tempered of steel. They have wrested the initiative from the Gawan enemy, and the Nigerian hordes are in trepidation and on the point of rout. The confusion of the enemy in the battlefields is only matched by the confusion in his home. Fight on, brave boys, fight on, heroes of our fatherland. Pursue the enemy, harass him, destroy the invader. March on, brave boys, now that victory is in sight. March on and hasten the disintegration of the enemy already set in motion. March on, young men, beloved in heaven, march on. The various attempts to subvert our solidarity may cause some uneasiness. Ignore them. Such antiques can only cause a small distraction and can no longer divert us from our true course. I have said it before, and I say it once again. Individuals may fall, but Biafra will never fall, let alone stand. O God, defender of the defenseless, preserve this our land.
Good.